I want to tell you a story, one I've never really shared with anyone. This is a very real, very true story. It starts 10 years ago in June of 2012. I had just turned 18 and was beginning a new chapter in my life, one that would greatly impact the person I've become in the 10 years since. On June 10th of that year, I had joined a group of people who, for the next 6 months of my life, I would spend every single day with. We did a variety of different things in that time, but the focus was voluntary community involvements, or basically just community service. We planted trees, cleaned up schools, repainted places, helped build things, whatever the community really needed or asked for, and honestly, it was a lot of fun. We did this not only in my hometown of Aurora, but also throughout my state, through different states in the country, and different countries in the world. Before we ever left the state though, we did spend a full month just in Colorado. And while I have always been blessed to grow up in a home with outwardly welcoming views, it was still a very humbling experience to be surrounded by people from 35 different countries, all with the same goal in mind. Make the world a better place. No matter how small of an impact we may seem to have, even putting a smile on someone's face could be enough. Growing up, I was always the outcast at school. I was the weird kid no one ever wanted to talk to or hang out with. I was the kid no one invited to their birthday party, and no one ever showed up for mine. I knew, even from a young age, this wasn't okay. The way I was being treated was not okay. For a while, I reacted in anger and hatred. I despised people because I just wanted to belong. Eventually, after stumbling from my path a few too many times, I realized the way forward was not through this anger and hate, but through humility and kindness. Through love. Finding this group in June of 2012 was no accident. It was where I was meant to be, when I was meant to be there. Though at first, I truly struggled. I really cannot emphasize just how much I hated being around other people at that time. But it was something I needed to change. I had fallen into such a depression I hadn't even realized the hole I was digging. Yet, when I went to this group, it was as if the shovel turned into a ladder. Slowly, as each day went on and we continued to spend time together, friendships started to grow, and suddenly, I was being invited places. One day, another local invited me and some others to a Rockies game. We probably lost, but the experience was incredibly fun. Later, we also went and saw the Rapids one day, who also lost, but I was also able to take them to some of my favorite places around town, including what was once my favorite restaurant. And it was at one of these get-togethers that a plan started to form. There was a new movie about to come out, the finale to a trilogy and follow-up to one of the greatest superhero movies of all time, The Dark Knight Rises. So while my personal excitement for it wasn't very high, some of those I was with could not wait to watch this final installment of Christopher Nolan's trilogy. Meanwhile, I was just a little more interested in Hans Zimmer music, but nevertheless, we found ourselves deciding to go and watch this movie together. With our time in Colorado quickly coming to an end, we wanted to do something a little special. We wouldn't just go and see this movie at any time. We wanted to experience a midnight premiere together, something I had done a few times before, but many of my friends hadn't. The problem was which theater to pick. We all lived in various parts of the state and needed to find a place we could all get to relatively easily. There was a theater close to my home, but it was pretty far for most of the other members, and ultimately it ended up being sold out anyway. Instead, on July 19th, 2012, the night of the showing, we picked a theater to go to. We chose the Century 16 Theater in Aurora. But most of us were still pretty young, even if we were technically adults. And more importantly, we were staying under the supervision of parents and host families. So while making plans was all good and fun, we had to ask for their permission. After all, from those not from the state, and especially those not from the country, those host families would have to be the ones driving. Something which is even harder to ask of them, when not only are they going to have to either pick you up 3 hours later or drive you home then, but you also had to be back with the group at 8 in the morning the following day. For this reason, we ended up not going. As soon as the first host family said no, the rest of us didn't even bother asking. It was all of us or none. Besides, we really did have to be back at 8 in the morning the next day, and getting proper sleep sounded very nice. So ultimately, we all went home and did just that. And then I woke up the next day to the news of what happened. And the worst part is, the world hasn't gotten any better, but I hope we never stop trying.